Hello,
Hi, Mario. How are you?
good. And you?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
Good.
Ready to go.
This Masechta is complicated also.
Oh, yeah. I thought it would be a little easier.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm leaving tomorrow. You definitely be like also. How are you doing first of all? You take
Good evening, everybody.
Abe, can you mute, please?
Okay.
We're on,
Yes.
we're on Daf Zion Amid Aleph. So we talk about doing a kmitza by somebody who's puzzled to do it, like a non-Kohen or a Tvul Yom, and we said that the act of kmitza is not completed until you put it in a klishores. Once you put it in a klishores, then you could not put it back into the original vessel. But the Gemara has a very good kasha. When you put it back into the original kli, which is what we wanted to do, it's also kli sharis. So why doesn't that complete the act of the kmitza, the improper kmitza, into a kli sharis, and then it's all invalid? Amrav Yochanan, Zoy Semeres kli sharis ein mekach nel midas, because right now Rabbi Yochanan is telling us when you put something into a kli sharis, It only sanctifies the item if you want it to be sanctified. Here, you recognized that a czar, a non-Kohen, did the kmitza. You want to put it back into the original klishores without being miskadish. So since it's not miskadish elamidas, it doesn't invalidate. So hamidas mekadshin. So what? If he had in mind to be miskadish, it would work. When it's someone who's inappropriate to do the kmitza did the kmitza, even when you have das, when such a kmitza is put into a klishoy, to be misadished so it could be thrown on the mizbeah. And Amar Lein Mekachin, which when Reish Lakish asked Rav Yochanan what would be that din, he said it does not miskadish it. So that's even with das. Oh, ein Mekachin likoret, aval Mekachin liposel. A klishoris can be miskadish it midas to invalidate it, at least to become possible. Rav Amar Omar, K'gon shachzir levisa gedusha. He did a kmitza from an original klisharis, but there was so much flour in it, it was above the rim of the kli. So it never became miskadesh. And therefore, you don't have to worry that it became miskadesh, that you completed the act of an improper or invalid kmitza. So, if this kli was full of flour so that it was above the rim, and that's where you did the kmitza from, that kmitza is not a valid kmitza. You got to do a kmitza from the kli itself. Rather, it says the Gemara, like Kigon Shechzir Lebisa Tfufa. It didn't go above the rim of the kli, but you put it into a place where there was sort of like a mound. So the given the comment slay of a leguma. Once he did the kmitza, there was a hole there, and ki mahader. When because we said you can resuscitate the mincha by putting the invalid kmitza back, legavi demonica mahaderle. Well, it's now been miskadesh into that kli. So mechi mahaderle monachle adafna demona. He puts it on the wall of the kli. Umenayid levinafit b'meila, and he shakes it. And then it falls into the hole that had been created when you did the kmitza. And therefore, nasa kamishach zero koif. It's not a person who put it back, it's like a monkey who put it back. And therefore, it's not miskadesh. Amar le Rav Yirmi Rav Zeir. Why not say, look, makagon shachzir lekli amunach lagabi karka. We have a problem when a pasul person did the kmitza and you put it into a klishares, you've now completed an act of an invalid kmitza, so it should all be pasul. However, if the kli is on the ground, it's not being held by somebody. The kli is not miskadish. The fact that Rav Yirmiyah didn't give that answer, shma mina, that it would be a valid kmitza if you did kmitza from a klishois that was on the ground. This is a shaila that we had been dealing with. The Rav Avimi Tani Menachos by Rav Chisda. Avimi was studying Menachos by Rav Chisda. So the Gemara immediately interrupts Avimi by Rav Chisda Katani. Did Avimi study Menachos with Rav Chisda? V'amar Rav Chisda, Kulfi tabi boli mavini aloda hashmaisa. I received many petch from Avimi. He taught me, and if I would forget it, he'd give me a patch. Which halacha bola hachmiz, when you have Yisomim and they own karka, and you're going to come sell it, you have to be machriz to the whole community, so people will come and they'll get the best price. So if it's got to be ritzufin shloishim yoy. If you make achroz every day, it's got to be at least for 30 days. If you're not announcing every day, but you're doing sheni v'chamishi shisin yom, then you have to do 60 days. So you can't say that Avimi was learning by Rav Chisda, was Rav Chisda learning by Avimi. So Avimi masechta is akre isakrele. Maybe he had an illness, or he forgot the Menachos material that he had learned. He came to his Talmud, also committed Rav Chisda lad Kori Gemara. For Rav Chisda to remind Avimi of what he had taught Rav Chisda. Why did Avimi have to go to Rav Chisda? Avimi is the Rebbe. Rav Chisda should have come to him. So by acting in a more modest way, he thought he would have a better chance of recovering the knowledge he had lost. Okay, Pogaber Rav Nachman Amarle. Rav Nachman met up with Avimi when he was studying Menachos. And he asked him, Ketzad Koinse, how do we do Kmitza? Amarle, Mekli Zeh. There was a Kli shorts that's on the ground. You can do Kmitza from on the ground. Amarle, V'chi Koinse Mekli Shal Gabi Karka? Amarle, no, the Magbe Koyin. The coin picked it up. And it has to be put in, or you have to do Kmitza from a kohen holding it. Ketzad mekadmin es hakohen. So Rav Nachman asked Avimi more questions. What do you do with the Kmitza after you did it? How do you miskadish it? Nois no leklize. Again, Avimi answered, you put it in the kli, and the kli was on the ground. So Rav Nachman said, V'chimekachim b'kli shal gabi karka? Can a kli that's on the ground be miskadesh? Amarle, the magbe lekoin. No, even that kli has to be picked up by a kohen. Amarle, im kein utzrachta shloisha kohanim. You need one kohen to do the kmitza. The kohen has to hold the vessel that the kmitza is done from. And a third kohen has to hold the kli that you put the kmitza in. What's wrong with that? For the other satomid, we need 13 kohanim. So here we need 3 kohanim. So from Avimi, we've learned that to do the kmitza of a mincha, it's got to be held by the kohen. It can't be on the ground. Esvei, ze'aklal, kol ha'koymetz. Whoever does the kmitza of a noisim b'kli and places the kmitza into a kli, or hamoilech, or you walk it to the mizbeach, v'amakter, or you throw it on the fire, and you do it with an improper intention. Lechol davar shedarko lechol. These are all the various avodot. Well, why didn't he mention bilu magbiel oktani? He doesn't say one of the avodot is for the kohen to pick up the kli from the ground. Tani Seder Avodos, Lokit, Velo Seder Kohanim. That Barais is telling us the order of the Avodot, but not their various Kohanim. It might be another Barais that would say, okay, the Kohen has to pick up and hold it, etc., etc. But that's not what that Barais was doing. Boy, my name Rav Sheshes. Ma'olik motz mekli shal gabi karka. Are you allowed to do kmitza from a kli that's on the ground? Amar Le, Rav Sheshes responded, Puk chazim abdin lagav. Go look how they acted in the Beis Hamikdash. We have a Mishnah. Arba kohanim nichnasu. This is talking about the lechem aponim, which is also a mincha. Lechem aponim was taken off the shulchan on Shabbos, and the new lechem aponim was placed also on Shabbos. And arba kohanim nichnosim. 4 kohanim would go in. Shnayim b'yadayim shnei story. 2 would be carrying the 2 loaves. U'shnayim b'yadayim shnei bazichim. 2 would carry the kli of spice. Arba mekadmin lifneim. There were 4 kohanim who went in before them. Shnayim litol shnei storim. 2 of them to take the 2 loaves that were on the shulchan. U'shnayim litol shnei bazichim. There were 2 cups of spice that were sitting on the lechem aponim, so they had to remove those as well. V'ilu magbias hashulchan lo ktani. Now, when you take the levona, that's like kmitza. Yet it doesn't say that the shulchan was on the ground. It doesn't say that the kohanim have to lift the shulchan, which is the kli, before they remove the levona. So the Gemara says, that's not a kasha. Lav Ramat Hasam Seder Avodah is not kat. You told me before that when you bring these brises that are listing the various avodot, it has to do with the avodot, not with how many kohanim are needed. Hachanami Seder Avodah is not kat. That brisa is not a kasha because it's only telling you the various avodot that have to be done. So the Gemara says, mi da mi. Hasam loinachas leminyan de kohana. Over there, when we listed the various avodot, it didn't tell us the number of kohanim, but that price, if you're going to give me the number of kohanim, if one of the kohanim had to lift the shulchan, they should have listed it. Imisa listening magbiya. From the shulchan, we learn that you can do kmitza even from a kli that's on the ground. Shmamina. Amarav. You're allowed to do kmitza from a kli on the ground. We see the removal of the cups that were holding the spice on the lechem aponim could be done without lifting the shulchan. That when you did the kmitza, and you put it in a kli to sanctify it, that kli can also be on the ground. When you apply the levona to the top of the lechem aponim, that's like putting the kmitza into the kli shoretz. So l'chora, we have our answer. Boy Rava, kiddushay koimitzmai. When you've done kmitza from a mincha, can you put the kmitza into a kli on the ground? Do we say mimincha yalfinan law? Maybe we learn it from the mincha of lechem aponim and we say yes. Omi dam yalfinan. Maybe just like when you shecht an animal and you collect the blood, that has to be done in a kli that the coin holds, not that it's on the ground. Rava answered that the laws governing the kmitza is analogous to the laws of dam. And therefore that kind of kmitza has to be put into a kli shoretz held by a kohen. Does Rava learn the dinim from dam? Va'itmar. Koimetz shecholku b'shnei kelim. You did kmitza, but instead of putting it in one kli, you put it in 2. Rav Nachman Amar ain't a kodesh. It doesn't work. But Rava Amar kodesh. Now, imisa now if is learning the laws of kmitza from dam, so you're not allowed to put dam into 2 kelim. So the Gemara says, Leilith midam, you should learn from dam and say it should be possible to put it in 2 kelim. The Gemara says, Rava went back on his ruling, on his din, and he said that if you put a kmitza in 2 kelim, it's not kodesh. V'dami nolan deloy kodesh l'chatzon. where do we see that when you collect blood, you cannot put it in two kelim? The Tani Rav Tachlifa ben Shol. Kiddush pachos b'chdei hazah b'kli zeh. You have a certain amount that you need. This has to do with paraduma water. Now, if you mixed a certain amount of water less than is required to sprinkle, doesn't work. We asked, what about blood? Do we say by the paradum, it's a hilchus, it's halach l'mosh misinai, umi hilchus lo yofinan, odil mahosam my time? Why by the paraduma do we have to have at least the amount of azah? The agudat ezov has to be dipped into the water. So you need a certain amount of water. Hachanami haksiv v'toval etzba'o badam. By the blood, it also says he has to dip his finger. If you don't have enough, it's not going to work. V'itmar Rab Zrika Rab Elazar af badam lekidesh. It doesn't work unless you have the right amount. And Rava brings a brayso. Amar Rava Tani Namachi. V'tava v'lo mesabek. The Kohen dipped his finger in the blood, and he sprinkles it 7 times. He doesn't tava v'lo maspek. He doesn't wipe his finger off on the sides of the cleave. And it has to be bedam shir tefillah mikaro. There has to be enough blood in the cleave for you to dip your finger in. And min adam shebeinyan. We're talking about dam that's being discussed. We'll see in a minute what inyan we're talking about. But that shows us what we've been learning so far is you can't be makabel dam in 2 kelim. Vitzrich lemichtav v'tova, vitzrich lemichtav bada. We need 2 limudim. Because rachmana v'toval, having afagav lo kibul shir tfilas mikaro. Maybe even if you didn't makabel all the dam in 1 kli at the beginning, but later on it'll work because rachman badam that the whole blood has to be makabel in the kli. Because rachman badam avim afil misapek. Maybe you could wipe your finger to get blood, not dip it in it. Because rachman v'tov, you have to dip it. And what's min adam shebe'inyan lemu'utim to exclude what? Amarava lemu'utim shiraim shebe'etzba. Any amount of blood left on the Kohen's finger, you can't use that. You got to clean it and dip it again from scratch. Messiah Rabbi Lezer, Domer Shiraim Shebe'etzba psulim. Any blood left over your finger is possible for zrika. Amri Talmid Cham Rav Amra. That your student in the name of Rav Amram said, Tanya Yamazeh, one of the Purim on Nisrofi, and the Kohen was sprinkling the blood, the Nitzazo Miyodo, and some of the blood splattered on his garment. If he hasn't done the sprinkling yet against the Kodesh Kadoshim, ton kibbutz. You got to launder the beged. But if it's spilled on his beged mishis, after he finished it, then ton kibbutz, you don't have to wash. My love. Actually, Gomer Hazah, so before he finished his sprinkling, then you need kibbutz. Umishigomer Hazah, so once he finished, he doesn't need Shema Minod Shiraim Shebe'ezba Kishiraim. Here we see that the shiraim on the finger of the Kohen is okay for Hazah. The Gemara says low. Achlo yotzta miyado Hazah. Before any of the blood has left his finger, ton kibbutz. Mishiyotza zamiyado v'nitza mimashen nisha. But if it sprinkles on the beg, and even for something that's left on his finger, ain't tone kibbutz. So here, this price seems to suggest that the blood on the finger is, you cannot do zrika with. However, Esrei Abaya, Gomar Milahazos, once he sprinkles the blood of the paraduma towards the base of Mikdash, Mekanech Yadu Begufa Shel Par. You got to clean his finger on the goof of the para. Gomar in, but he's finished. Lo Gomar lo. He doesn't wipe the blood off. He can continue using it. So you see the blood on the finger is good. So Rava says no. Amr le Gomar Mikonech Yadu. After he finished all the azos, then you clean it off. Lo Gomar Mikonech Etzbo. If he hasn't finished, he has to do 7 times. You have to wipe your finger before you dip it in again. You got to do it 7 times. After each dipping, he has to wipe the blood off his finger because the blood on the finger is not good afterwards. I understand that he's going to clean off his hand on the hide of the para after he finished. You got to burn it when you're done. So what do you mean he hasn't finished all of the 7 sprinklings, but meanwhile, he has to clean his finger? But my mekanech, what is he cleaning it with? He cleans it on the rim of the kli. Kippurei Zohar, pasuk in Ezra. One of the minchas of the Kohen Gadol was burned completely. You cannot be miskadesh half of it. Every day the Kohen Gadol offered the minchas chaviti. Half was in the morning, half in the afternoon. The Kohen Gadol would put half of the amount of the flour in one, and the other half in another. According to the other opinion, they put the whole amount in one kli, and then you can split it. But we'll go through this tomorrow, because it continues. So tomorrow we'll learn at 7 the daf, and I have volume 20. Please come to my home. You can pick it up, or you could learn tomorrow night at my home. You can get the volume that way.